Hello, welcome to another Amber's Place tarot reading videos. This is a weekly reading for the Flame community. The Flame community is a community of like-minded people and friends using the free online text, voice and video chat software of Discord in order to get together and communicate. And it's a community that likes to discuss lots of different topics: philosophy, spiritual development, personal growth, healing, alternative medicine, basically most things that are considered alternative. If you would like to join the community, and all are welcome, just shoot me an email. My email is in the About section of my YouTube channel here, and I'll send you an invite. Okay, so let's get on with this reading. So I'm going to be using my usual two decks, which is the Messenger Oracle deck by Ravin Phelan and the same author, Her Dreams of Gaia deck. So first things first is to draw an oracle card, which gives an overview, a kind of addition or focus on the overall message within the tarot spread. Okay, so the oracle card that has been drawn is Let Two Become One. So this talks about share yourself with the one that you love. Be their best friend and let them be yours. Let your trust in each other be unshakable, and your love be strengthened by knowing and accepting each other's flaws and weaknesses, and still loving each other despite them. Give yourself completely, trusting that you will not lose your independence or a sense of self, but instead become two halves of a stronger, loving whole. So as this is a reading for a community, I would suggest that this is referring to a need for the community to come together as one consciousness. Not fully integrate, obviously, still remain independent, but to perceive themselves as part of a whole rather than as an individual. So now the tarot. The first thing I do is mix up the orientation of the cards. So this reading, by the way, will be for the following week primarily. It could overlap a little. Okay, we have our 4 cards. I've just done a couple of tarot readings before recording this, and the cards today are coming out a little differently than they usually do with me. So, the first one we have is the reversed 7 of Water. We then have the Queen of Fire. We then have the Sage. And we then have the 6 of Fire. So the water cards are emotion cards. Okay, so the reverse meaning of this card is it's an energy of being unable or unwilling to yield and be flexible. It's an advisory card. It states, remember that which does not bend will eventually break. It is better to be fluid, to go with the flow. Be like water. Water can find any crack, any opening, and use it to its advantage. If contained, it becomes still and peaceful, calm and receptive. This is synchronistic because earlier I was having a conversation about certain topics and I kept thinking of rivers and streams and water. Okay, so it's time to allow the river of life to wash your emotional armor away. A gentle, more flowing outlook will serve you better. Soften your stance. Let go of your feelings of resistance. Be open to potentialities and be peaceful. Be like water and flow. Okay, so bear that in mind this week, members of the Flame, that just bear in mind the message to be like water, to not be resistant, to allow yourself to be more flexible in situations, to not be so firm in your stance. The next card is the Queen of Fire. So this is a card that was drawn earlier. Okay, so this card, in another spread, I should say. So this card asks that you be optimistic and positive. Enjoy life at this time. Enjoy the essential pleasures of life. Be bold and be daring. Be fearless. This is not the time to second guess yourself or allow doubts to prevent you from acting upon an idea or plan that you know will bring positive change and growth to your life. This card symbolizes living a full life and living fully in every moment, living a sensory life, stimulating your senses, all of them. See, hear, listen, touch, taste. Your senses are a true gift. Put them to use. So I would say that this goes with the previous card in the way that it's asking, even if there are hardships or perceived hardships or disagreements that may crop up this week, if you're not directly involved, then allow yourself to go with the flow. Don't get involved unless you need to, but have a positive mindset. Manifest a positive outcome. This is something we can take into our everyday life all the time. Always try to manifest the best outcome and keep an optimistic and positive mindset. When it says be bold and be daring, be fearless, this harks back to the previous card, the reverse Seven of Water, where it said, allow the waters of life to wash your emotional armor away. We often encase ourselves in emotional armor because out of fear of being hurt, out of fear of being too strongly buffeted by the winds of life. Sometimes it's better to allow that to relax so that you can be carried along within the flow of life. Imagine yourself as flowing along the surface of the river rather than struggling underneath with all the currents. The next card is the Sage card. Okay, so the key phrases for this card: be the storyteller, communicate your thoughts and feelings, know your audience, devote time to research and investigation, learn the traditions and customs of others, know your ancestors and your heritage, sage advice both given and received. There is no good time to give unsolicited advice. Question your traditional reactions and responses. Do not speak so much that you forget to listen. Be wary of the smooth talker and do not embellish the truth. So one thing that jumped out at me there was question your traditional reactions and responses. This ties in with the previous cards. In when we wear our emotional armor, we get ingrained in patterns of behavior. When we allow that to relax, we can be more fluid in our patterns of behavior. We can allow them to change or moderate. We can not be so rigid in our stances. So that was something that jumped out there for me. Okay, so because this is in the future, it's a reading for the future, this is the future meaning of this card. Knowledge in all its forms aids the decision-making process. It makes our choices clearer. Okay, do you have faith in the ability of humanity to continue to grow and learn? If we look back at the past, we can see that we have grown as a race. Outdated and false beliefs have been cast aside as human understanding increases and our knowledge grows. However, we must also accept that much of what we know now will be deemed inaccurate or false in the future. That is the way of knowledge. It evolves and changes as we do. Much of what we have now in the present was once believed to be improbable or impossible in the past. All of our technological advancements were once the stuff of fantasy and imagination. We as a race continue to grow and evolve because people challenge, question, and defy those who have told them that their actions are foolish or flawed. They have studied, researched, investigated, debunked, and invented, and in doing so have moved us to the knowledge we have at this point in time. In 200 years, will people look back and shake their heads over our barbarism and ignorance? Or will they see the history that we create in a positive light? We in the present have so much to be proud of, but we have just as much that we should be ashamed of. When the sage appears in the future position, he represents the importance of learning and cherishing the knowledge of your family line and history of your people. If you do not understand, ask. If you do not know, learn. If you do know, share. Celebrate the role of a sage and offer your knowledge. Tell your stories for no other reason except that knowing where we come from and what we have endured improves us and enables us to live a mindful, aware life that creates a better future for all. Okay, so overall, he represents living in a manner that you know will make your grandchildren and their grandchildren look back in pride. So this is all about being mindful and aware of our behaviors this week, our individual behaviors and our behavior as a group. Keeping in mind this message to behave in a way that our descendants and our family will look back on in pride. Looking back to the past to see where our behaviors come from, and learning from those who are of different traditions as well as our own traditions. Not being so rigid in our views that they are wrong and I am right, or my knowledge is correct because it comes from a long history, whereas their knowledge is incorrect, even though that also comes from a long history. That's how I would interpret this card in this spread. Okay, so I'm going to read the first paragraph of the present because I was drawn to that. For this card. When the sage appears in the present position, it represents sage advice both given and received, and the importance of knowing when to offer it and knowing when to heed it. This is all about tradition. We all embrace tradition in our lives. Our habits can and often do take on the form of traditional behavior. Traditions give us constancy and foundation, but it can also build walls that we lock ourselves behind. So this is what I was just saying, actually, that was coming to me about this card. About knowing if our behaviors and our thoughts and our beliefs are traditional, and even if they're traditional, that doesn't mean they're right or completely right. Okay, so the next card is the Six of Fire. This is another card I drew in a previous spread. this morning. So this card represents a time where mediation and arbitration or arbitration may be required. It's about recognizing there are two sides to every disagreement. Sometimes both are right, sometimes both are wrong, sometimes it's a mix of the two. Often a mediator can step in to help, and sometimes it requires an arbitrator to make a decision about who is right and who is wrong. This card, overall, it advises us to keep our emotions under control. So again, this goes back to the rest of the spread about being mindful of our behavior and having your facts straight. Be respectful of any laws or rules that are in place, and be both courteous and considerate at all times. We'll always remember that our behavior will have a bearing on the outcome, whether we're directly involved or not. Remember, our thoughts manifest. So even if you're not directly involved, be mindful of your thoughts and expectations, because this goes back to the previous cards about we are all one. Everyone in the community is one consciousness. Everyone is connected, which goes back to the Oracle card, let two become one. Remembering that we are all part of one collective, and therefore, even if you're not directly involved in anything, your wishes, your desires, your thoughts, even if they're thoughts you prefer you didn't have, will affect the outcome, because all of our thoughts also affect our behavior. So whether you're directly involved and that's affecting your behavior, or you're on the outskirts and it's just your thoughts, it will still have a bearing on the outcome. So be mindful of your thoughts. Okay, so there you go. That's the reading for the flame for this week. And like I said, if you want to join the community, just send me an email and I'll send you an invite. And if you like the video, please like, share and subscribe. Thank you. See you next week.